This is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles from Safe Harbor Retirement Group. When a part of your financial strategy is out of tune, your long-term goals, your retirement savings, and your legacy can all suffer. With many years of experience in the financial industry, Cory provides his clients and prospects with the information they need regarding Social Security, retirement income planning, wealth management, and much more. Listen in as we address your financial concerns and provide helpful solutions to put you on the path to achieving your retirement goals. And now, here is Financially Fit Radio with Cory Sickles.
Welcome back to another episode of Financially Fit Radio. I'm Cory Sickles with Safe Harbor Retirement Group and Wealth Advisors. If you have any questions or if you want to discuss anything that we talk about today, just give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. And while you're on our website, feel free to check out that radio page where you can actually listen to other previous episodes, as well as subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, or Spotify. We're here to help and guide you to make sure that you're going to have the best retirement that you can. Another thing you can also do is watch our radio show on our YouTube channel. Just type in Safe Harbor Retirement Group. You can also watch not only Financially Fit, but you can also watch some of our Financially Fit short tips, as well as some other videos on different types of financial topics as well. Today we're going to talk about really achieving retirement success and some of the crucial factors that you really need to consider as you kind of prepare to have financial security. Before we kind of dive into that, let me introduce to you my co-host this week and every week, and that's Tony Shore. Tony, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Cory. Glad to be here and had a great week this past week. Just got a lot done. How about you? How have you been?
Been doing good, Tony. It's hard to believe April's right here, man.
Yeah,
I mean, it's hard to believe we're already through the first quarter of 2024 here.
Isn't it? I mean, that first quarter flew by. This year's going to go by quickly, for better or worse, I guess, right?
Yep. It seems as we kind of age, days go kind of slow, but weeks and months go by and years go by really quick.
It is so true, Cory. I cannot believe it. People always said that, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. When I was young, but
I know.
But yeah, it really, really does. It does. So I know that today you have a really important topic, and it's something we all care about, which is achieving retirement success, right? That's what we all want. And my wife and I are planning for that. And that's where you come in, you and your staff there at Safe Harbor. I think it's so important to work with a financial professional like yourself. But I know you've got some tips for our listeners out there today on how to plan for a successful retirement.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it today, we're just going to talk about, some of the key things that you should think about or hopefully take care of, hopefully before you do retire. As we kind of talk about some of these topics, Tony, I think it's very important for our listeners and our viewers here as well to be able to I think make sure that they understand that it's when you work with an advisor, we're here to help guide you to make sure that you have the best retirement that you really can. And by the earlier that you start working with an advisor, the easier it's going to be able to plan to make sure that you do retire when you do want to retire.
Sure.
It's so tough. When you save and save and save, the easy part's saving. The most difficult thing is how do I turn my savings into a lifetime income stream that I know I'm not going to have to be able to outlive.
Right.
And that's one of the most difficult things to be able to do. So, we're here to help and guide you to make sure that you are going to have financial security. And one of the things I think people underestimate when they do retire are how much you're truly going to spend on healthcare costs.
Healthcare is one of the biggest expenses. We've talked about it on past shows, and you're mentioning that it really is. And I'm seeing that with my parents who are in retirement. I mean, healthcare costs are outrageous. And again, people think Medicare is going to cover it, but it doesn't, does it? It doesn't cover everything.
Right. So obviously we know that when you go into retirement, you're going to have to pay for Medicare. And, for this year, it's really $174 and some change per month for Medicare Part B. And then, then you have to probably get a supplement on top of that.
Yep.
You might have to depending on what you do, you might have to be able to go out and get dental or some vision. And next thing you know, you're paying somewhere between $300 to $350 a month, for your healthcare coverage. And that's from an individual standpoint.
Yeah, there are still premiums and deductibles, even with Medicare, aren't there?
That's exactly right. And then, you have to go through the entire process that not everything's covered, by Medicare as well.
Yeah.
Obviously some of the things that I think that's going to help for next year in 2025 is, now you're going to have a max out of pocket of only $2,000 on all your prescriptions. Right now you could be paying a lot more than that, but at least they're going to be able to put a limit on that. And I think one of the biggest issues that people have had over the last few years is, the cost of insulin and some of the other drugs that are out there that have a huge impact on what you can spend on a monthly basis on other things, because you have to pay so much on your healthcare costs. And, so my point of all this is don't think about, don't think that healthcare is not going to be expensive in retirement, because it's probably going to be more than you actually think. And even if you're healthy, you're paying this $350 plus a month. And we assume when we design plans, Tony, that these monthly premiums are going to increase by 5% plus a year. So we know that's going to be a lot more, as you kind of go through retirement as well. And of course, one of the biggest health things, the big unknown is, are you and your spouse going to need some type of long-term care, whether it's in-home or whether you're actually in a facility, or whether, the most expensive is actually going to be if you go into Alzheimer's or dementia type of facility. So that's one thing that can really derail a retirement plan, is of all of a sudden you have to take the money that you have in order to spend for these costs that you did not expect to spend.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's huge. And I think planning for healthcare and retirement is something that people overlook a lot of times, which is why you're bringing it up today. But it is one way to avoid running out of money in retirement, is to plan ahead for it before you retire. And, it is like everything else. Some people listening might say, well, I'm already retired, then it's too late for me to do anything. It's never too late to look at where you're at and to maybe look at strategies that might be available to you. But it is especially beneficial the sooner you can start planning for it and preparing for it. And this is, again, why you need to work with a financial services professional.
That's exactly right. And, a couple tips that I would probably say about healthcare in general.
Sure.
There's a lot of products out there that we can put in place today for you to be able to help, pay for a big portion or a large portion of those healthcare costs if you do go into a home, or if you need someone to come in and take care of you. So there's things out there that you can actually purchase, and just like anything else, the cheapest that it'll ever be will be today, because you're the youngest and you're probably the healthiest you're ever going to be. So that's something that we can definitely look at, for you. And the other part that I would say is, if you can actually contribute to an HSA plan, I would do that on an annual basis, because believe me, whatever you put in there, you will spend, whether it's this year or next year or 10 years from now, you will be able to spend that money on healthcare expenses.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The HSA, that is a great tip, because that rolls over. You don't lose it at the end of each year you put in, and you can carry it with you into retirement, and it comes out tax-free. Goes in tax-free, comes out tax-free. So it really is the only type of account that the IRS allows in the entire IRS tax code that you get to put it in tax-free and pull it out tax-free, right?
It is. And I think that's something everyone should be looking at, if you can possibly put money in there, because, as I said, you will spend it. Medicare is not going to pay for everything. A lot of people think that Medicare is going to pay for long-term care. They don't pay for it. So you're going to be kind of on your own, and it's kind of whatever you have you saved or whatever you put in place is really how you're going to pay for your, for these healthcare costs. So anyway, I think that's a big thing to be able to think about. Obviously one of the things that we talk about all the time is Social Security. It's the foundation of any type of income planning. And the only thing that I'll say here is we have a Social Security maximization report that we can show you and you or your spouse what's the best way to be able to optimize Social Security in retirement. Obviously, every year you delay, it increases, potentially up to 8% per year as you kind of go through the delay period there. So, and there's a lot of factors that go into that, whether it's health or family history and things like that. But as I always say, before you make a decision on Social Security, there's nothing wrong with having a report that's going to show you which all your options are. So, and then you can make an educated decision on what you want to be able to do and how you want to implement your Social Security benefits. You only get to be able to do this once, just like you only hopefully retire once. You just want to make sure that you do it the right way, because if you do make a mistake, you could be costing you and your family, potentially tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and I know you're more than happy to run that report for our listeners. All they have to do is set up a consultation, come in and talk to you, and have that Social Security maximization report run. And it is huge. I mean, it lets you know spousal filing strategies, when the best time based on your personal information is to file, because everybody's different. Just because your neighbor filed it at one time, or a buddy at work, or a relative, doesn't mean that's right for you. It could really derail your retirement. You could be leaving money on the table, as you always say. And like you say, we're not going to dig into it deep, but I want to encourage our listeners out there, Cory, to go listen to past shows. We've done a number of shows specifically about the different Social Security strategies. If they have questions, there's a lot to know there. So they can all they have to do is go to safeharboroh.com, and they go to the show page, our radio show page, and they can look at the titles of past shows. And we have shows on Social Security maximization. I encourage them to give a listen to those shows too.
Yeah, I think, the more that you become educated on any type of financial topic, it's going to be easier for you to make a decision what's going to be right for you and your family.
Yeah.
So that's all we want to make sure of. We're here to help and guide you, but ultimately you have to make the decision. And again, you only get one shot at Social Security, so you want to make sure that you do that right.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that people underestimate are two things. One is inflation. I don't think they actually know what the true impact of that is. And the other one is longevity, on how long you're actually going to be around. Both of those have a huge impact on, are you going to be able to outlive your money? And,
Right.
When we look at inflation, if you want to make $75,000 a year in retirement, and that's the day you retire, 10 years from now, that needs to be about $92,000. 20 years from now, that needs to be about $112,000 that you need to be able to make, per year to have the same spending power that you have today. And I think a lot of people don't estimate. They think that, hey, I can just get by on $75,000. But where you really run into issues from a longevity standpoint now is how long are you going to be in retirement? Are you retiring at 60? Where now you might have 30 plus years in a retirement, or if you're retiring at 65, you might have 25 to 30 years in retirement. Is your money going to last that long? Are you going to be able to increase that over time as well? And I think one of the things I hear all the time is this: well, when I retire, I want to do all my, I want to do all this traveling and all these other types of things the first 10 years of my life. Well, what they don't realize is, if you're spending a little bit more money during those 10 years, that has a huge impact on what that balance of your retirement savings is going to be 15 or 20 years from now. So when you work with an advisor, we're going to be able to build income plans that we can actually see whether or not you're going to have issues. So if you do want to spend money for those first 10 years, we can plan for that and then drop it down after, year 11. And then we're going to be able to show you whether or not you will have an issue about living your money. I have a lot of clients that go, well, I want to spend everything that I can, right? Well, if you work with an advisor, am I going to actually have you run out of money at some point in time? No, I'm not.
No.
The other side of it is are you going to be able to need some of that cash later on to be able to pay for long-term care expenses that we just talked about a few minutes ago? So there's other factors that come into play, other expenses or changes that happen, as you kind of go through life. A spouse might pass. You still need the same amount of income in retirement. If you're losing a portion of your Social Security or some other type of income because of a spouse passing, that could have a huge impact on what your income is going to look like and whether or not you're going to have issues of running out of money.
Right. And, you really hit on three key things there. And the two biggies, really, when it comes to eating away at your retirement income is inflation and longevity. And what I always say, about longevity, the good news is, Cory, we're living longer. The bad news is we're living longer.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And then you also mentioned the passing of a spouse, which can really derail your retirement income if you haven't planned for it. All three of those things, really separate issues, need to be planned for. And really, that's where you come in. And I think that's great. Really quick, before we move on with the show, let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you to set up a no-charge consultation.
Yeah, for our listeners out there, just give us a call at 614-760-0670, or you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. Again, we're here to help and guide you. If you don't have a financial plan, we'll put one in place for you. If you do have one, we can be that second set of eyes and provide a second opinion. And just remember, all of our meetings are complimentary, so you don't have to worry about paying us any type of fee as you kind of go through this process. Again, we're here to help to make sure that you're going to have the retirement that you want. And the best way to be able to do that is to come in and sit down with us and for that complimentary, no obligation meeting.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Cory, we're talking about how to achieve retirement success. What's another crucial factor to have financial security in retirement?
Well, obviously, Tony, if you're living longer,
yeah,
that means you're going to have money. You're going to need money. And at some point in time, you have to be able to make sure that you have a sound investment strategy.
Sure.
Right. And, one of the most key things that you can do, and we talk about this on the show all the time, and that is to make sure that you're actually, when we need to look at your risk tolerance to make sure you're allocated the correct way. Right. You don't want to be so conservative that you're not going to be able to keep up with inflation. You don't want to be so aggressive that your entire portfolio kind of follows what the market is. Because, when you're retired, the days of you probably making, wanting to make 20, 30% a year are probably gone. What you really don't want to have happen is you don't want to lose 20 or 30% a year if that does ever happen, right?
Right. So you want to care more about losing. Yeah.
Right. So you want to make a good return, but you also don't want to make sure that you're overly exposed because you no longer have potentially that time for the market to come back. So by working with an advisor like us, we're going to sit down, find out exactly how you're invested, and invest you, in certain different types of products or tools that we have here that's going to be able to be the best, for you. So obviously, one of the things that you do want to look at is maybe like a fixed indexed annuity, for example, where we can provide that guaranteed income for you. So you don't care what happens in the market today or tomorrow. That money is going to be coming in for as long as you and your spouse live. And again, you have to be invested in stocks. Even though you might be very conservative, that might only mean 20% of your money is invested in stocks. But you have to be able to get some long-term growth out of all this money so you can actually keep up with inflation, right? Keep up with those income levels, because we know cost of goods are going to keep going up, and you need to be able to keep up with inflation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, everything's going to go up in price. So you need to plan for that. That's huge.
Yeah, it's, and obviously another thing that kind of goes with your investment strategy is, am I doing it the right way from a tax standpoint? I mean, you cannot talk about having a great retirement without knowing how much taxes you're going to end up being paying, right? So we want to make sure you're diverse, not only from an investment standpoint, but you're diverse from a tax standpoint. You want some money that maybe you only have to pay on the gains on. You're going to want some Roth money where it's tax free. You do not want all your money in IRA or 401ks where you're going to pay taxes on that for the remainder of your life. So again, by working with an advisor as early as possible, we can, put together a plan to be able to make sure you have a diversification from a tax standpoint, because we're at our lowest levels ever. We're never going to see lower taxes than we see today. At some point in time, taxes are going to go up. And, the question is how much are you truly going to pay in retirement? Because just because you have $1 million, if it's all in IRA money, doesn't mean you have $1 million.
Yeah, true. It's a joint account with Uncle Sam, right?
That's exactly right.
And taxes in retirement are a biggie. Everything I've read and everything you've told me, Cory, is the two biggest expenses that retirees have in retirement. For the most part, most retirees, the two big ones are healthcare and taxes.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't realize, they think, well, I'm not working, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket, I'm not worried about taxes. But if you need that income in retirement and you have a good plan, you're going to have income in retirement. Even your Social Security can count toward taxes and be taxed, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. I would probably say, Tony, when we do income plans, 80 to 90% of my clients are in the same tax bracket as they were working.
Which is a good thing in one sense. I mean,
yeah, it is. But
you want that income.
But what a lot of people don't realize is when you retire, you still want the same lifestyle that you have while you're working.
Sure.
Which means you need to make about the same amount of money.
Yeah.
And if you make 20% less than what you're making today, the question is are you still in the same tax bracket? And the majority of people will be.
Yeah. It doesn't. People think they're going to be in a lower tax bracket, but they're not always. And then they think, well, I'm not working, earning that income, but you're pulling money out of retirement accounts, which the majority of Americans, when they retire, have their money in retirement accounts that are tax deferred, which means the principal, the interest, everything you pull out is fully taxable.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And
Right.
we're here to make sure that you're going to be able to enjoy retirement from a tax saving standpoint as best as possible.
Yeah, you don't want to have $100,000 in an IRA. You're thinking you've got that to use for retirement, but really you only have about 80 probably.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So just like anything else, you want an income plan, and a big part of that's going to end up being an income plan from a tax standpoint, because that's what it's really all about. And we're here to help and guide you about that.
Yeah.
As we kind of wrap up, today's show, I think the other thing I think people really need to think about too, and I don't think they do, and that is when you retire, it's a lifestyle adjustment. You woke up every day for 40 years, or ever how many years, you went into the office, you did all this type of stuff, right? Next day you wake up and every day's a Saturday. We've talked about that on the show as well.
Yeah.
And now you have to kind of say, what am I going to do today in order to keep me active as well? You don't want to sit there and not do anything, because then that's going to deteriorate your health. You want to be active, right? You might go through a period of maybe where you downsize. You might move to another state, whatever you might end up doing. But you need to kind of have a plan of how am I going to spend my days in retirement? You can't golf. I love to golf. I don't think I can golf every day, right? I'm going to have to go out and do other things.
You might be able to golf every day for the first few weeks or months.
Right.
You're going to hit a wall. Yeah.
You're going to want to do some stuff. You're going to want to get out, whether it's volunteering or whatever you want to be able to do.
You need to have a purpose.
But and I think you really need to think about that before you retire, because the day's going to come here quicker than you think, and you just need to be able to figure out what you want to be able to do with that, because let's face it, retirement is emotional. It's an emotional period. You only, hopefully you only do this once. It can have a huge impact socially for you, between what you're doing before and what you're doing now. So, just like anything else, put together a plan on how you're going to be able to do that. There's so many times I talk to clients, and believe me, the spouses don't want you necessarily always in the house. Right?
That's true. That's true. Well, Cory, great show today. We have to go, but let our listeners know first how they can get a hold of you and set up a consultation.
Yeah, no problem. For our listeners out there, just give us a call at 614-760-0670. Or again, you can always visit us online at safeharboroh.com. Again, we're here to help and guide you. Schedule a complimentary no obligation meeting with us. If you have a financial plan, we'll be the second set of eyes and provide a second opinion. If you don't have one, we'll put one in place. Our goal is to make sure that you have a secure retirement. And the best way to be able to do that is to have a plan. And we're here to help you do that.
All right. Thanks, Cory. Listeners, that does it for today's episode of Financially Fit Radio. Thank you for listening to Financially Fit Radio. Don't pay too much for taxes or retire without a sound income plan. For more information, contact Cory Sickles at Safe Harbor Retirement Group. Call 614-760-0670 or visit their website at financiallyfitoh.com.
All matters discussed during the show are for informational purposes only. Each individual situation may vary, and the opinions expressed here may not apply to everyone. Materials presented are believed to be from reliable sources, and no representations can be made as to its accuracy. All ideas and information should be discussed in detail with one of our qualified representatives prior to implementation. We are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration, the Federal Medicare Program, or any other government agency. Calling this number will direct you to a licensed sales agent.